it is me, Kitty, or as most of you probably know me by my pen names, KM, Shea, and AM Soma. And I am here to finally do the assumptions video. Yay! It's been so long. I'm so sorry. So when I say assumptions video, what happened is a couple weeks ago, I asked you guys to leave some of the assumptions you have about me in the comment section of a blog post. And I told you guys you could assume anything about me, whether it's about me as a person, my writing, my characters, perfect dog. And so you guys totally delivered and you came up with some really great assumptions. So I've got my tea and perfect dog is sleeping somewhere around here. So let's just dive on into it, shall we? I do want to apologize to everybody whose name I'm about to massacre. I have problems with like sounding out spellings of everything, names included, so I don't mean to get your names wrong. I'm sorry if I do. Please know. I'm sorry. But okay, let's start out. Kyla says, I assume you have a PlayStation, a Game Boy, possibly an Xbox, and lots of computer games. I also think you probably prefer open world, choice-based, customizable, character-based video games. And Caitlin asked something similar as well about liking choice-based with open world games. And both of you are correct. So Kyla was only really partially correct. I do have like the Game Boy systems, DSs, and all that kind of stuff. I have a very old PlayStation 2. And then I have some Xboxes, but what I really have actually is a bunch of the Nintendo systems. I'm a huge Nintendo fangirl just because I used to do a lot more like Xbox and PlayStation gaming. Fable was actually, it still is, like my second favorite series ever. The first being there we go. Zelda, that's like my all-time favorite video game. But Nintendo has a lot of more lighthearted games, which I kind of tend to need these days just because it's really hard to write the books. So I tend to do better if I get to play something that's either a little more cheerful and like escapism, like Zelda, or if it's something that's just like cheerful and kind of like, that would be like Rune Factory, Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing, all that kind of stuff. And then Gia also assumes that I play World of Warcraft, which I actually haven't. World of Warcraft is one of the only MMORPGs that I have never played. I'm not really sure why that is. I think it's because the people that I play with aren't really into it either. So Lord of the Rings Online was the one that I played the longest, and I still do sometimes play. So, and for those of you guys who don't know, the AM Soma crew actually do have a Lord of the Rings kinship. If you want to learn more about that, you should check out the website, kmshay.com, and look. I think there's like a fan discussions tab, and in there we talk about it. Cecilia says, I assume you like pop music. What kind of music do you like? I do like pop, but I don't actually listen to it a whole lot. I mostly listen to movie soundtracks and anything instrumental. Lindsey Sterling and Taylor Davis are probably the two big ones I listen to a lot. Otherwise, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, lots of like just instrumental only. And part of that is because I listen to music whenever I write. And I can't really listen to anything with words when I write because otherwise I start to write to the beat and like sometimes I even rhyme. It doesn't go well for me. So I do listen to a lot of classical stuff. That's probably a little unusual, as I love classical music. Yeah. I don't know why. I really love it. But might go back to just liking instrumental music in general too. So we'll see. Brooke says she assumes that I would like a cozy cabin or cottage with an amazing library and a view of some sort, and so I can read and write to my heart's content while watching amazing vistas and drinking tea. And let's see, Kim G also assumes that I like to write with a view of the outdoors, and both of you are correct. I don't actually live in the country right now. I live in the city, but I am hoping to move out to the country again in like a decade or something like that. But I was born and raised country gal. I love it. I love the outdoors. I could tell which of you guys have actually seen my Instagram page because it's like 40% perfect dog, 40% like outdoor, like views of like flowers and stuff like that. And then the rest is just like eclectic, like Disney and some pictures of me and stuff like that. But yeah, so I am very much an outdoor girl. I want to live in the country. It's an aspiration. And okay, so Hannah made similar assumptions about me wanting to live in the country and stuff, but she also assumed that I like to hike and wondered if I'd ever been geocaching, which I have not. I actually really want to try that just because it sounds like a lot of fun. And I do like hiking, but I'm not like a huge dedicated hiker, mostly just because I live in Wisconsin. But we don't have mountains, we have tallish hills. Oh, Lauren says that she's making the assumption that Britta is no longer my intern, as I haven't posted anything about her in quite a while. However, she assumes she still is one of my lovely beta readers. And that's true-ish. So Britta is getting busy with college and stuff like that. But she does still do like all the beta reading for me. Actually, Reign of Magic is the first book that she isn't beta reading, and that's because of me, because the book is so long and it took so long to write, so we're really behind, and I needed to make sure I gave my editor plenty of time to edit. So that's the only reason why she's not beta reading Reign. Otherwise, she continues to beta read. I'm so thankful for her and for her patience in dealing with that. So yes. Kinshuk says she assumes I like flowers. Very true. You must be an Instagram follower. And that I'm not, and she also assumes that I'm not a morning person, which is kind of true. I would be honest in saying I would never choose to get up super early, except Perfect Dog always has to be up by 7 o'clock no matter what, which I don't consider that super early, but I am more of a night person, but oddly I focus better in the morning, so it is important that I do get up and get to work right away, just because then I have a better drive. Whereas I'm not good at writing at night. It tends to get interesting. Let's see. She also assumes I'm not a workaholic, which that is very false. I am a total workhorse. I just keep going and going and going. I work most weekends. I don't work holidays usually. But yeah, almost every weekend I work a couple of hours, and it's just specifically since I love this job so much, that's one of the things that I'm more likely to do, is just keep working, because I really do enjoy it. So it's something that I'm having to learn balance in, because I have the tendency to work myself into being sick. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of handle stress better. It's one of the things that I'm working on. So it's a goal for 2019. It'll probably be a goal for 2020. And I think it's going to be a long-term goal, unfortunately, just because of my personality type. But I love my work, so it's not all bad. Let's see. Kinshuk also assumed that I know horseback riding and a bit of archery and sword fighting. Yes, except for the sword fighting. I never actually have done any sword fighting. I researched it, and I ended up going and attending like some club stuff in college and watching sword fighting, but that's the only one I haven't done. I've taken like an archery class and done it a little bit myself. I'm very bad at it. And then I did a lot of horseback riding when I was a kid. A lot of horseback riding, and all different types too. Like, so I did Western, English, dressage. Although, in all honesty, my favorite is trail riding, which is where you just saddle up and go out on the trails kind of thing, which kind of loops back to my love of nature. Yeah, funny how I'm consistent like that. Next question. So Megan, it's Meggen. Megan. Sorry, Megan. She assumes that I like anime and manga because AM Soma sounds a bit like the Soma family from Fruits Basket, which you are 100% correct, Megan. Part of it actually started with video games, is because I get into the Japanese video game type things, but I do like anime and manga. My favorite anime ever, which is super old, this is gonna date me. It's called Saiunkoku. It's so good. It's kind of more historical, but it's got all the things that I love. It's got politics, fighting, lots of humor. Oh my gosh, so much humor, and really good secondary characters. Like, I honestly think actually that anime and manga is how I learned how to write such good secondary characters, because a lot of anime and manga have amazing secondary characters. That's where most of the humor comes from, and that's kind of a style that I have adapted as well. Next one. Okay, Kate says, I assume you are single and you are either close to or in your 30s. Megan, not to be confused with Megan, and Karen assume similarly. And all three of you are correct. I am single, because who wouldn't want to date this? And yes, I am just in my 30s. Am I 32? I don't know my own age. That's kind of a bad sign. Somewhere in the early So I'm gonna have to do the math now and figure out exactly how old I am. Oh. Megan also assumed that I would be an awesome person to attend Comic-Con with, which maybe. I tend to get overwhelmed by big crowds, so but I do like conventions. I've been to a couple. It's been a lot of fun. And you also mentioned, Megan, that that would be fun maybe for me and all of us champions to get together during Comic-Con or something similar. That would be really fun. I have wanted to like go to a conference, but to be honest, I'm kind of like, I don't, we would have to figure out which city most of you are in or like located near to. Otherwise, it's going to be like me and two of you champions, and that wouldn't be awkward. Oh, yeah. Let's see. And then a lot of people, so Kay, Madison, and Gia all asked if I was Kitten Love Much. And then from the Second Age of Wraitha, A.M. Soma books. And then Mike assumed something similar, but he said it was more along the lines of he thought maybe her silliness and sarcasm were like me. And you guys are, Mike is close. For Kay, Madison, and Gia, no, I'm not really Kitten Love Much. If we were to honestly take a look at all the characters in Second Age of Wraitha books, the one that I most resemble would probably be Noir, the testy healer. I almost always end up being healers whenever I play an MMORPG. Noir's sarcasm and intense dislike of people is kind of like my inner rage just extremely dialed up, because like all of us healers, all of us get to be like that at some point. You eventually become jaded and cynical just because people don't listen to you and then they die and then they blame you and it doesn't go well. So I'm probably most like Noir, but I can see why people kind of think that, because my name is Kitty. I named her Kittredge, Kit for short, but part of that is because I actually really like the name Kittredge, but I knew I'd never be able to use it in my Timeless Fairy Tale world. So I saw my opportunity and I took it, but it also was because I knew I wanted to give her kind of like a schmarmy, like online name. So when she got the name Kitten Love Much, I did it because I'm willing to make fun of my own name, but I didn't want to offend anybody that I know personally and make fun of their name. That was really why she ended up getting a name that's kind of similar to me. But Mike was kind of right when he said like her silliness and sarcasm. That is probably a little more like me. I kind of do have that tendency to be silly. I'm not nearly as strategic as she is. I do not think as deeply about things as she does. So to answer the question, no, I'm not technically Kitten Love Much, but we do share a couple of traits, not as many as you're thinking. It's probably, I'm a lot closer to Noir. So moving along. Madison and Hannah and a couple other champions assumed that I am Christian, and you are correct. Hopefully, you guys can tell from the way I act too. That would be a good thing. A couple of you, so Mike specifically said he assumes that Once Upon a Time is my favorite TV show. There were a couple of you who thought that. And actually, no, I haven't ever seen it, which I've done that on purpose because I didn't want it to influence anything in the Timeless Fairy Tale world. So I went ahead and just decided I was going to finish the current arc in the Timeless Fairy Tale world before I would go back and see Once Upon a Time. So one day I will binge it, and I'm told I'm going to love it. I'm looking forward to it. But no, I actually haven't seen it at all. Jess assumes my hair is naturally curly, which it is, yes. And she also assumes I'm on the shorter side when it comes to height, and that is actually not at all true. I am between 5'8" and 5'9", somewhere in there. I tend to have a skewed thought on height, though, because I'm actually the shortest in my family. So I'm told I'm pretty tall, but I'm the shorty, so. Nixie assumes I enjoy reading posts and conspiracy theories from my fans, especially in the Discord server, because they fuel my tendency for the unexpected in my books. It does, like, yes, I do. I love reading it when you guys post your guesses and your predictions for future books and stuff. It's so fun. It does also help me too sometimes if nobody is talking about something, then I know I really did not foreshadow that well, so I better go back and do a better job in the next book. So, but in general too, it's just a lot of fun. And there's also like, you know, I'm really honored too that you guys enjoy the books that much that you're thinking about it. Like there's a certain amount of just it really makes me really feel happy and loved just to know that you guys even want to invest the time and do that. So thank you. Lizzie says she assumes I have a favorite couple from my books, which is true. Um, in general, I really always enjoy the characters that I'm working with in whatever book at the moment. But if we're looking at like all the characters over the entire time I've been an author, Cinderella and Frederick actually are really high up at the top because they were so easy to write. Similarly, Angelique and Evariste are also both really pretty easy to write, so I really enjoy them. If you look, I think it's because they kind of have a similar rapport in that Evariste and Frederick both kind of troll their significant others. So I just kind of, that to me is easy to write. They're easy to riff off of each other, and that's why I personally enjoy it more. It's also easier too to add humor in comparison to like Elle and Severin now are really easy to write now that they're married and they've been together for a significant length of time. In their actual book though, it was miserable. Like, oh, it was so hard just because they didn't want to fall in love. They were not interested in one another. So yeah, as the author, I guess you could say my prerogative to liking characters is that they just have to be easy for me to write. Holly assumes that I was probably inspired by childhood favorite fairy tales, and that's what inspired the Timeless fairy tale series. And Bethany said similarly, she assumes I read a lot of fairy tales as a kid. Both of you are correct. Obviously, I'm a huge Disney fan. I love the Disney animated movies. They're amazing. But I also, my mom had this huge, really thick book of fairy tales and like Mother Goose kind of like nursery rhyme stuff. And that was actually how I ended up getting to read a lot of fairy tales. I actually saw, like, I have memories of that book before I could read. And the Wild Swans story in that book was actually so beautiful. It had some of the most beautiful illustrations ever. That's why it like stuck with me so heavily, and that's why it was the second fairy tale I put in my series. So to answer both your assumptions, yes, you are correct. Ray assumes that I take every comment and fan letter personally, for good or for ill. It's not that it's a strength or weakness, just something that is. And Deanna said something similar. She said, I assume each reply to readers' comment is an emotional investment more than a time investment. And both of you are correct. Ray especially. Part of the reason why we kind of had to like, I had to sit back a little bit on like trying to comment on every comment there was and reply to everything is just because it took me so long to get through everything because I would obsess over what I should say to everybody. Like I'd sit there and it would just take me so long and I would just fret, and like days later I would wonder like, did I say the right thing? And so it got to the point where it was really starting to eat into my writing time. So it was for the sake of being able to keep my writing at the current level that it is and keep going, we kind of had to step back. But I'm really looking forward to coming up with new ways though, so I can still connect with you guys because I still love you and I still want to end up interacting with the KM Shea AM Soma community. And I honestly tell other people I have the best writer. No, I tell other writers I have the best reader community, and I truly believe it. You guys are amazing. So thank you for sticking with me. Let's see. Laura says, I assume that sometimes your characters take control of the story and change everything, which also leads me to assume that you develop your characters before writing. And yes, on both counts, Laura. I do, especially the main characters, I really develop. The secondary characters, sometimes I'll kind of wait and see what kind of backdrop I need. But the main characters for sure. You are correct, the characters do sometimes take control of the story. However, it's usually not the main characters. There's a couple exceptions, like Farron from the Snow Queen series. He drove me up the wall. He kept doing what I fondly call intensely intensifying, which is where he just got like more and more intense in terms of how much he loved Raquel, to the point where I was like, dude, you gotta step back. You're gonna freak her out, and then I'm gonna get stuck trying to get her back with you, so stop it. But he was really one of the only ones. Secondary characters actually are the ones who usually go off script and like go off doing things that I didn't plan on. I'm not really sure why that is, and they always end up doing really cool things. Like, for example, in the Magical Beans Rehabilitation series, in the second book, Goblins Wear Suits, there is a scene where a goblin is fighting a magical creature person who has a weakness to iron, so he pulls out a nail gun with iron nails, and I did not plan that at all. Just as I was writing what he was doing, he just did it, and it floored me because I'd never thought of something like that. So yes, there's lots of little ways that the secondary characters in particular end up kind of like making changes, but it's always really awesome, so I usually try to go with it, unless they're being naughty like Farron. Ann Lee says, I assume you have had the bones of Angelique's story figured out since before you started Beauty and the Beast. And Kinshik had a similar assumption. And you are correct, Ann Lee. I actually first got the idea for the Timeless Fairy Tale series by starting with Angelique, because I had recently just watched a bunch of fairy tale movies and read a bunch of fairy tale books. And I had seen how there was always like an enchantress or like female mage or fairy godmother or just something like that. There's always some kind of like magical female mentor character. And so I thought, wouldn't it be hilarious if it was the same woman in every single story? And she would just be getting progressively like more tired and cranky and crazy as all of these stories progressed. And that kind of led me to like wonder, okay, well, if she was doing all this, like she's obviously trying to do something, like what is she looking for? And that's where I came up with she was looking for a Variste, she was looking for her master. And so then I'd kind of circle around because that was such a fun idea. And I each time I tackled the fairy tale, I would kind of try to turn it on its head and ask myself, you know, like, well, how can I make this make more sense or be a little less creepy? So, for example, with Beauty and the Beast, I ended up asking myself, like, how can I make this, like, not a Stockholm Syndrome story? And that's where I came up with Elle was stuck there not because she's being held captive, but because her leg broke and they couldn't easily move her. And I also tried to twist things in unexpected ways too. Like so that's why the Beast doesn't care to get to know her. He doesn't want to make her love him because a lot of the fairy tale retellings that I'd seen, the Beast always kinds of ends up being a little obsessed with the girl, or at the very least, like has her there against her will for specific things. So I wanted to try and do something completely different though. And then that's kind of the feel that I went with for the rest of the series. That's why like Rumpelstiltskin, it always creeped me out how the king who threatens to kill the girl is the one that ends up marrying her. And so I was like, nah, we're going to ditch that and we're going to make Rumpelstiltskin the good guy. Because in reality, he is. So yeah, that it started with Angelique and then it kind of built based on the premise. Now we have some really good Perfect Dog assumptions. Kim assumes that Perfect Dog is never very far from me when I write, which is totally true. She is sleeping over there right now, not too far away, which leads in perfectly to Nina assumes that Perfect Dog sleeps a lot, which she does, partially because I have to exercise her a lot. Otherwise, she'd be a little more high energy. But since I do walk her and play with her a lot, she ends up sleeping whenever I work. So it's good for both of us. It's a good exchange. And Kira assumes that Perfect Dog is unsure whether or not to be friends with Roland. For those of you guys who don't know, my parents have a cat that actually is the one that Roland, Puss in Boots, is based off of. He's the cat that's on the cover, and all of his body language is based off of that cat as well. And ironically, it's actually the reverse. I got Perfect Dog as a puppy, and Roland, Puss in Boots, was already an adult. And he kind of, I don't know if you want to say help schooled Perfect Dog, but kind of. Like, he definitely took her under his paw, so to speak. And so she loves him, but he kind of is more like, well, I might deign to look at you and play with you when you visit occasionally, maybe. Which really, if you think about it, is very much a Roland thing. You guys also had a couple of assumptions about my personality too. Nina assumed I'm a bit more reserved in person than I come across in my blog posts, which is true-ish. Like, if I were to meet you guys, I still would be, like, this bubbly and outgoing, but that's because I know you guys. So, yeah, like, if you were to see me on the street, I would be a lot more reserved. But if I'm ever with people that I love or people that I know, I'm a lot more outgoing and a lot more animated like this, so. And then Hannah assumes that I'm more on the sarcastic side, which is true. There were a couple of others that assumed, too, that I'm more sarcastic. It is kind of true. I don't think I'm quite as sarcastic as my writing comes off as. But I generally do have like sarcastic things going on in the back of my mind. What I really am is I'm usually doing something weird and or possibly stupid. I like going out there and doing like random things and experiencing new things because there's a chance that one day it might be useful to write about. And finally, our last assumption for the day, Arletta assumes that while I like fantasy, I don't entirely suspend my sense of reality, at least not in the area of human behavior and consequences of choices. And that is true. I really like trying to have relationships that feel more realistic in my novels, and I really like reading books like that as well. Particularly too, like with politics. I used to be a reporter, and I'd cover lots of like city governmental meetings and stuff like that. And as a result, I kind of when it comes to political books and stuff like that, like in fantasy, I should say when it comes to political wars and stuff in fantasy books, I have expect a little more realism. That's a word. Yes, it is. I expect more realism, I guess you could say, than entirely fantasy. So, Arletta, you are correct. I do like to both read and try to include more of a touch of realism in my fantasy books. So that is all of the assumptions. Wow, that's a long video. Thanks for staying with me until the end. And thank you to everyone who submitted your questions. You guys also had some really cute and unbelievably sweet and just heartwarming comments that you left on there too. So thank you so much. I'm so blessed to have you guys as my readers, and I'm really thankful for all of you. So thanks for tuning in. We'll have to do this again. Or we'll come up with something different. I am serious when I say like I want to really prioritize figuring out a way where I can still connect with you guys easily. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the video, if you liked this, if there's some other kind of like angle or thing you'd like me to come at, like in terms of any other kind of video responses that you would like. But yeah, leave them in the comments down below. And thanks so much for coming, guys, and for listening. Bye.